would you say then using that strategy would be something that an individual should do as far maybe a SWOT analysis of themselves, a SWOT analysis of the department that they're working in and the organization to kind of see what path they may want to take, or in determining that? Would you say that how would that work? Was that a good idea? Or
I think that those who experience what I have offered in my role as a leader do that as they move onward, because that's part of the development that I do for them. And have them participate in that and show the value in that. I modeled that myself, in the sense that my career has been challenged. When you're working corporate, as my dad would say, the closer you are to the CEO, the closer you are to the exit. And in HR, when the CEO goes or the company is acquired and you are sitting at an executive level, then you're packaged out.
Oh, okay.
And you're right. So that's a challenge in a career path, that of being in human resources.
Right.
And so anywhere I go, even before I look at an interview or a job, I do due diligence on the organization and assess the organization from what they present in their website. I go and look at the board of directors. I do research on the board of directors. I look at the leadership, where they've been and what they've done, because there are clues to challenges that I may have as a Black female going into organizations. And if you don't do some sort of SWOT analysis as you are developing your career around where you are being considered, you might make the right decisions in a wrong organization.
I see. Okay.
So
what is the right decision in a wrong organization? Tell me what that means.
A right decision in a wrong organization. A wrong organization is one that has missions and values that speak to my perspective of social justice, the rights of individuals to be all that they can be in an organization, the amount of revenue that is placed toward the workforce. And that would be a right organization. But it would be wrong if the leaders are not walking the talk. So I have a right organization, but wrong in that sense. And sometimes you discover it once you get in there. And so you might be making a right decision based upon all that you've done your due diligence on, but it's the wrong organization when you get in there.
I see. And then so let's say that's the scenario, that it's the wrong organization once you found out, once you got in there and really got situated. So from a career path perspective, what would be something you would recommend if I was in that situation?
Well, first of all, as my husband would say, your name's not on the door.
Okay.
And what that means to me is that I had a chief administrative officer in a retail organization tell me, and I've always used that to help me in being prepared to leave. Organizations have three components to them. You have one component of the workforce and leadership that are very committed to the organizational values, committed to the change that you want to bring about, and they're right there with you. And then you have another third, and those individuals are like folks in the show me state. You know, I've been there, done that. You got to show me that this is really going to work before I get on the bandwagon here. Then you have a third who will do whatever possible to prevent the change and to be contrary to the values of the mission. And so when he told me that, I said to him, I said, oh, that's your top 200 leaders. It was at that point that I decided to be open to recruitment. But that did not mean that I did not continue to strive to align myself with the business imperatives, with the development of people, or anything of that nature. But I decided that this was now a wrong organization for me, and I would be open for recruitment. And I am not exaggerating. I would say within that month's time, I got contacted by an executive recruiter. And I thought, well, let me check this out. Somebody, a network person, internal to the organization, gave my name to this executive recruiter. And what happened was my movement, it was a promotion and a movement to manufacturing. And the one thing that I noted that in my career, when I'm experiencing challenges, it is generally when my work is done.
Okay.
And I really believe in that there's a greater spirit, God, that manages our lives. And when my work is done, God moves me on, whether I'm ready to move or not. And so sometimes I think, well, I'm going to stick around here and continue to do this. And I'm not able to do my work the way I was supposed to do my work. And then I realize I have to step back and say, oh, my work is done. And when I come to that conclusion, decisions are easily made and opportunities open up.
So let me make sure I understand. I just want to paraphrase back. The challenge then for you is when you know your work is done, right? And that being said, you know what you knew when it's time to leave. And from a career path perspective, that for you can be a challenge, correct?
The challenge for me is recognizing that it's time to leave and that my work is done.
Okay.
I am very goal oriented. And so my strategy that I develop in human resources is driven by the imperatives of the organization and my goals over a 2 to 3 year period to get my strategy done. And what I have discovered is that when I get to the 2.5 year point and start thinking about going beyond that, the work is done. And if I was brought in to stabilize, to build an infrastructure, to bring individuals on board, sometimes that's all the organization wants from a human resource standpoint. And I had one individual tell me that, Valeria, you are more than what we need.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And I was packaged out, and I would say within maybe 3 months, I was recruited to another position
Hmm.
by networking.
Okay.
And what had happened, this company was spun off from the parent company.
Hmm.
The CEO that I reported to, as my dad said, the closer you are to CEO, the closer you are to the door. And so he got packaged out, and so did
Oh.
HR and marketing.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it wasn't anything about my performance. It
Hmm.
was just that I was more than what they needed, and my entire team was downsized and eliminated.
Mm. Okay. You know what? The common theme through all of this is network, the word
Yes.
network. And so, what are your thoughts, Valeria, now that, post pandemic
Uh,
and everything, the way we work has changed. We have the totally remote, we have the hybrid, and so networking, how do you feel about networking because we may be in one of those type of work environments or situations? So what would be some things that you would um, suggest or recommend when it came to networking and the way that we work post pandemic?
One of the things that I reinforce to not only my teams, but to leaders is that um, hybrid is better than remote. Hybrid meaning, 2 or 3 days on site, and the other days working from home. That works if the workforce understands their unique responsibilities and accountabilities and how their contribution in their job is directly aligned with organizational performance. If that is not clear, then you get complaints from leaders that people aren't doing their jobs.
Mm.
And the metrics are showing that people aren't doing their jobs. And that's why you're beginning to see organizations saying, you're going to have to come back in the office because I don't trust that you're doing your job. And I think it is totally because there hasn't been clarity on how their job contributes to the success of the organization. But there is another challenge to remote working and hybrid. Those who are at the executive level are the ones that make decisions on promotions and career advancement. And that is still a relationship standpoint.
Mm.
And it still involves advocacy and sponsorship. It's difficult to sponsor and advocate somebody that you may only see on Zoom, and then they may not have the video on, but only have a picture. So you're starting to see those organizations that service is primarily relationships to customers are asking individuals to come back to the office.
Okay.
And I think you're going to see probably more of that on certain areas. Now, the other thing from an organizational development standpoint, and I think you probably have run into this doing your leadership consulting, is that there are some positions that lend itself well to outsourcing.
True.
And so when you have an entire finance group that is working remotely, and you've got all that headcount and also the benefits that you have to pay,
Mm-hmm.
you could outsource all of finance to a company that totally specializes in anything financial, the financial levers, understanding that, for a fixed fee. And so I think the other thing that you are probably seeing, I know I'm seeing, because I've outsourced some pieces of HR. If it's very task oriented, very administratively oriented, I outsource it because it's not going to, it doesn't require relationship building. It's
Right.
probably the furthest from the customer. And therefore, it can be outsourced. And you have metrics of performance.
Yes.
And you can also build in gain sharing if they are able to save you some money.
Right.
And so individuals who feel that, oh, I don't have to come in and work, I can do everything I want from home, that may be doing them a disfavor.
Right. Right.
And
That's very that's true. I agree with that too. The relationships are very important. They're necessary, and you're right. You could be doing yourself a disservice by not. And I don't know how that may look like in your organization, or how it would look like in far as building those relationships. But relationships means interacting with
right,
people, and when you interact with people, you're usually face to face and not
right,
through a video screen.
right,
And
right,
so you lose that, I don't know what that finesse or that contact when you are, meeting through a video screen. And I
right,
understand sometimes it's necessary logistically if you're in another part of the country.
right,
But also, the thought for me is leaders need to consider, well, maybe we need to bring, if that's the way we have to operate, maybe we need to think about bringing people in, I don't know, once a quarter or
right,
once a month or whatever, just to have that interaction and, have that interaction and, camaraderie. I
right,
think that's the
right,
thing in building those relationships. So
exactly.
I see where that could be, an issue. That's why I wanted to know a little bit about how you felt about that remote hybrid kind of
Yeah,
thing, networking and building relationships.
yeah, it's too
Mm-hmm.
difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a couple of employees that I inherited who
Mm-hmm.
work in other states.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the individuals is working on uh, their master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just real frank with her. I said, once you get your master's degree, you are going to be able to advance your career. I said, it's not going to be here in Chicago unless you're moving to Chicago. I would suggest that since you prefer to stay in St. Louis, there would be opportunities for you
Mm-hmm.
and for you to consider that.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a healthcare organization, our clinics require people there, almost or available almost
Mm-hmm.
24/7.
Right.
And you cannot say, well, because I'm in HR, I don't need to come in, or because I am in finance, I don't need to come in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's not um, parity of work. And it sets up what you and I have studied is it sets up an elitist sort of environment,
Yes.
the us and the thems. And when you create the us and the thems, that is when you get individuals feeling less than, feeling that others are more important,
Mm-hmm.
and they start having dissatisfaction with what they're doing, and you get all that sort of behavior
Mm-hmm.
that is anti our business imperatives,
Right.
our values, and our goals.
Right. Yeah. Morale just goes down.
Right,
Morale and productivity goes down. And
right,
I was thinking, there was a client during the pandemic that worked for a global company. And one of the things I worked in, did like a 360 with them, and some of their direct reports was out of the country.
Mhm.
But and one of the things that came back was um, they wanted to, they wanted to get to a point where their new leader, they could meet them in person.
Uh-huh.
Where, so soon as, the world opened back up, so to
Right.
speak, with travel and all, that's what that leader did. They made it a point to, they had direct reports in different
Mhm.
countries over in
Mhm.
Europe and Asia, and they made it a point to take those trips to meet them in person for the first
Right.
time,
Right.
because they just couldn't do it when they were promoted to that position. They couldn't do it because it was the middle of the pandemic. And what a
Right.
difference it made in her leadership style, okay, and
Mhm.
what a difference it made in her influence
Right.
was from the fact that, I was able to go now and meet them and get to know them, get to know
Right.
who they were. So it's not that it was just that it was on hold because of the pandemic,
Right.
but what a difference it made in that leadership influence once they were able to go ahead and go abroad and do that. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Valeria, is there anything else, any kind of wins or lessons that you'd like to share when it comes to developing your career plan? Anything else?
Um, for me, the major win is the outcome of my leadership.
Say
And
more. Say a little more about
the
outcome.
major win for me is the outcome of my leadership. Um, my direct reports, many of them are my peers now,
Oh,
and they still reach out to me.
oh,
Just
nice.
recently, I had a manager that reported to me back in 2008, and I hear from my direct reports probably a couple of times a year,
Mm-hmm.
or if they're moving and need my references or something like that. But I generally know what they're doing and where they live. And this individual is taking a director's position in Maryland. I've got a direct report who is now the vice president of human resources for Duke University.
Yeah.
Um, I have a direct report who's an author now. Another one who is head of leadership development for a major airplane manufacturing company. I've got one who is a mayor. I mean, um, uh, uh, that is my success in seeing what people are doing
Mm-hmm.
after working with me.
Mm-hmm.
Even with when I was in healthcare, it's the same way. Some of the individuals have expanded and grown as well. And so that has been what is most enriching for me. And that's the people standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I will say this though. My husband told me when I got my doctorate, he says, Valeria, I hope that this education and what you put this family through, and I'm going, oh, was not for the sake of learning to learn. And I didn't even realize he knew our
They
theory.
knew that term.
Right. And he said, I expect you to be quantifiably miserable. So part of my career progress is to make certain that it's going to be quantifiably miserable.
I love it. I love it. Well, Valeria, I want to thank you for your time today, all of your insight, all of your wisdom. You shared quite a bit with me, your experiences, and a lot of nuggets of wisdom to take forward. So I look forward to us doing this again. Do you have any
Oh,
final thoughts? that you want to
No,
share?
this is fun. I always enjoy sitting down and talking egghead stuff with you.
Okay.